It is 6:30 in the town of Readfield, Maine. Let us stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Well, hello, everyone. Good evening. You may notice that Bruce is different. That's because I am Dennis. Bruce Burgoyne, our chairman, can't join us this evening, so he has asked me as co-chair, or what am I, vice chair, excuse me, to conduct the meeting this evening. So we'd like to welcome everyone, and I certainly appreciate all your help as I navigate my very first meeting. I can't say that I am new any longer. All right, when we look at the agenda, we take a look at the minutes from our previous meeting. Is there any information or a motion to accept those minutes?
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Good, there's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Very well. All in favor of approving the minutes? All righty, very well. Thank you very much. We move to our next agenda item, which is the warrant discussion. And it looks like we will be discussing a warrant that is cleaning up and perhaps our last fiscal year 20 and moving to a progression of our fiscal year 21. Who discusses these?
I do.
Very well. Very well. You have the floor, Catherine.
Okay, let's see. So the first warrant was, Bill, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I won't yell then. The first warrant was number 58, and that was for two items that were cleaned up from last fiscal year. That was one to Harris Computers and the other to Freddie Flaherty. The amount of that was $7,804.88. And does that one need to be signed by all three of us, Eric?
Yes, these do require three signatures. I believe that one was off cycle, and it may already have a couple. Should have all the signatures, but
Okay.
Anybody that hasn't signed it is certainly welcome to.
Okay,
Yeah.
So that one I believe we have all signed.
Yes. Yep. No,
All
that's
right,
correct.
and then moving on to the next one, on August 3rd, we had warrant 5A and B and 6. And this was a big one, and we have another big one tonight. So I'll give you some highlights, and then please feel free when my screen stops changing slides to ask me any questions.
So while Catherine's checking or scrolling, I wanted to just point out that warrants 5 and 6 are in the packet. I do have paper copies of 7 and 8 available here at the table. I also did get that uploaded to the website. So we do have 5 and 6 in the packet online, and warrants 7 and 8 are online as an addendum, because those were just processed today. So, yep.
Okay.
And when we talk about online, I just want to point out, since I'm running this meeting, that means that you can find them on the Readfield Town website under the tab on the left that says Select Board. So if you want to follow along at home, or if you're ever curious about any of the documents we talk about, that's where they can be found. Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome. Thanks, Dennis. So a couple notable things in this one, not particularly big money, but we made a payment of this is the previous warrant, of $16,148.17. We paid off the Bobcat. That was a 3-year lease to own.
So that was the last payment?
That was the last payment.
Nice, excellent.
Eric, I think the 13 road bond, was that also the last payment?
That was, yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
so that was $101,351.06, and there was interest of $2,298.24, and that retired another road bond. So those were momentous, in my opinion.
Here, here.
Everything else were pretty normal until you get down to the regional school unit. There were 2 different payments there. Because the vote didn't take place on the school budget until July 14th, there was no bill given to the towns for July. So in August, we had two payments due. The first one was $302,908.78. That's a single payment of that amount. The remaining 11 payments are the same as the one noted here, $302,909.02. We had a lot of boat registrations in that month.
Yep.
I think there were 58. People are out voting. So there was a total on this warrant of $767,000, $767,471.
All right.
And I believe we have all signed that one already. So moving on to the ones that are here in front of you in
Yes,
paper
indeed.
copy or on the website if you are following along from home. We have warrants 7A and B and 8. This was a regular warrant including state fees and payroll. Highlights from this one, let's see. Well, we had some awesome fireworks thanks to the Heritage Days Committee, Dennis. I was out on my boat and I counted in excess of 45 boats out on the lake. Everybody loved it. It was a big show. The echo was amazing. I think it was very much enjoyed.
Good.
We have our annual payment to the Cobussy Watershed District, $7,599. A small one, but to me important. Dirigo Architectural Engineering, $1,126.72 is the final payment for the fire station project for the architects. We have a $3,500 payment to Joseph A. Farinini, and that was for a week of cemetery work, repairing stones and teaching our current sexton how to do those repairs. Because the idea is that he's hoping he'll be doing those in-house, unless they're really beyond his means. So that's really neat. KV Cog, $4,453 was for the Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day, which I asked Teresa about, and that's significantly more than we've had in the past. So unless Eric knows, she's looking into if we had a lot more people from Readfield that were participating than we've had in past years, but she couldn't pull that up when I asked her at 4 o'clock, so that was
Part of it is that we had a good turnout because it was here in Readfield instead of in Augusta, but I think, and I know part of it was the fact that we did have a higher cost for setup because it was split between 3 towns instead of several. So there's a cost there, but I think that we'll come to the conclusion after we do the analysis that the benefit was worth it to have it available for residents.
Yeah, there was a lot of use and a lot of materials were collected from homes so that they are not sitting around possibly being environmental hazards. So that's the key piece of that project.
Always good.
Lucas Striping, $750 was the annual striping at the transfer station, which helps everybody know where they're supposed to be going. There's a payment for SJ Wood Construction for the fire station, $147,163.18. There's approximately $155,000 left on that project before any of the current possible change orders,
Which we'll discuss later,
which we'll discuss later.
unfortunately.
Waste management has 1 or 2 large bills. There was a large one last time and a large one this time. As you probably noticed, the brush pile at the transfer station has been taken care of, and there were an extra 4 loads of demo debris that were hauled away, so that increased our normal amount. So, including payroll of $18,491.50, the total for this warrant is $249,371.28, and I would make a motion to approve.
Second?
All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve warrant articles 7 and 8 only. Is that correct?
Yes.
Very well. Is there any discussion over those warrants? Very well. All in favor? Excellent. So warrants 7 and 8 have passed. Do we need to do any additional for the cleanup and 5 and 6?
No, those are all set. We
Great.
discussed those publicly and.
Just make sure. Thank you,
you
thank you.
certainly
Sometimes
can
the
vote on-
overlap.
Yeah, you
Thank
could
you.
if you wanted to, but they've already
Excellent.
been signed.
So
Just
these
have
have to
the
be
sheet.
signed, right?
Sorry?
7 and 8 have to be signed.
Yes, and the sheet's here for when we're done.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We move on to our communications in the agenda. We start with Select Board Communications, which is an opportunity for Select Board members to speak directly to the public about things or items that they find important. Are there any Select Board members that would like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
I want to know, Eric, what you think is going to happen with trunk and treat this year. Should we not address it? Because it needs some planning time.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. No pun intended. I do think that there's going to be a lot of discussion around events like that. We've found that we can still do a lot of things if we do them a little bit differently. Some events not safe. I mean, everybody's wearing masks already, right? So
The only problem is you're coming around and getting handed candy or helping yourself to candy.
Yeah, it might be that we have to do prepackaged, that
Prepackaged.
people have, and they come one at a time and they grab something off the table, or there's ways you could do it, and I'd be happy to help brainstorm some of those ways, and I know a lot of other communities have, are struggling with the same thing, but, so I think we could do it if there was enough interest and motivation, but like a lot of events during the coronavirus, we might plan and prepare and then have people just not show up because they're not comfortable.
Yeah, that's
And
my
that's
worry.
happened
Yeah.
with a few events we've had over the summer. So I think it's doable, but yeah, it's really up to the committee. Chris.
I have some input. At school, what the Department of Education is allowing is for students, obviously, to still be fed. But everything has to be prepackaged and picked up by the person who's taking it, and then any payment is being done by voice or by scanning a card.
Okay.
So I think it would be fine in terms of restrictions to actually have people package something up and put them on a table for people to pick up.
Well, they could, what we do is we have our trunks, so you could have them lined up there, stand off to the side if somebody needs help, but they could come up one at a time and
Right.
get
Yeah.
their treat.
And as long as I would think you just want to socially distance your trunks.
Yeah.
If
Oh,
they
yeah,
are
yeah.
6 feet apart, then I think it's probably more likely, I'm just guessing, that you would have a larger turnout, because I think people probably won't go to houses.
I think we've had really big turnouts anyway, so I think,
Well, it might be a good community service then,
Yeah.
to make sure that goes
Right.
on and that we have people available.
because I work with the Union Meeting House because they do their pumpkin walk.
Yep.
So,
And I think, that's an outside thing, and people are very much into that now. So I think I just say, yeah.
okay,
All right.
So I'll be glad to help with that.
okay.
Yeah. So as of right now, we're planning to have the
Trunk and treat.
The trunk and treat. Okay, very
And
well.
so if anybody wants to park their trunk at the Union Meeting House and do trunk and treat, let me know.
Thank you very much, Chris. Are there any other members of the Select Board? Good. I would like to take a moment as the sort of organizer of the Heritage Days. I just want to say a few things, and I appreciate your patience. The first thing is thank you very much. I thought everything went very smoothly with the actual fireworks. Folks were very understanding at the beach. They understood we had to shut things down for safety. It's literally a bomb blast radius that you have to be aware of. So thank you to everyone doing that. Thank you to everyone in the boats who came on Maranacook Lake. There was a nice distance that was there. Everyone was great. And at one point I heard someone yell out, "Do some more!" Which I thought was great. All of the cars parking, and thank you so much to RSU 38, Jay Charette, and everyone who was associated with Maranacook Schools, letting us have an advertised cars parking there. There were cars, they got out, there were folks playing, and really out of all the folks, there was only 1 or 2 cars that parked on 17, but it was too great of an evening to let that bother me. I just want to say that I appreciate everyone. This is an unusual Heritage Days for us. We're excited about the idea of planning Heritage Days 2021, and we're going to try to bring back some of those, some fun, day of activity events. So thank you very much to everyone in Readfield for just being cool and enjoying them, and thank you to Central Maine Pyrotechnics and everyone else.
When we do 2021,
Yeah.
are we going to celebrate our 200 years?
The rest of the state is all doing that next
That's
year.
what I
Yeah,
thought.
yeah.
Yeah.
We just postpone it.
Yeah.
We can do whatever we want.
Because the Historical Society is going to
Yeah,
do it.
that sounds
Yeah.
good. All
Sounds
right.
like a plan.
Okay.
Excellent. Now is the part of the agenda where we turn things over to Town Manager Eric Dyer, and he gives us his town staff reports, which are also available and in the packet to follow along.
Yeah. So I'll start with my town manager's report, which is actually just a verbal this time around. But I will kind of echo some of the things that have been said already about the unusual summer we've had and the fact that people have responded very well. This summer we've had to make a number of changes, continue to adapt as restrictions change around the coronavirus. And we've had a great summer at the beach. There's been a lot of attendance. And everybody, for the most part, has been very good about respecting the guidelines that we have in place and finding success in little things. We have watercolor at the beach. We've had yoga at the beach. That's actually ongoing every Saturday, I believe, at
Every Saturday morning.
9 a.m.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're continuing to do things as a community. And I think that's been wonderful. It's been very busy. We did have the hazardous waste collection day. That was an astounding success in my view. We had many residents come through from our 3 towns, and we did it on a Saturday when we had additional other traffic coming in. But a lot of people just kind of stayed away and actually came to the Sunday hours, which were a new addition this summer as well. So if anybody who doesn't know, we do have Sunday hours through Labor Day this summer. And I expect that's going to be something we'll see at the very least in summers going forward. And very likely we'll be considering looking at it as a year-round type solution in a few years. I think we need to run it for a little while just as a summer event. But Sunday hours, for people that work, it gives you 100% more time to go to the transfer station because you can't always be there after work on a weekday. And,
It seems like an unmitigated success.
It really is. I think we've had very high numbers of vehicles, and it's reduced the demand during the other days of the week, which adds to the safety. And it's a positive feedback, and people have less queue times. So definitely some struggles around the coronavirus, but again, the summer has shown that our residents pull together and do the right thing, and I've been happy to see that in many areas. We're going to talk about some major capital projects over the course of this meeting, so I won't get into any of those at this point. But again, my main focus on the town manager report is to just say thanks to people and highlight some of the things that are working very well. The beach and the transfer station among them.
Excellent.
With the financial report, we did do check reconciliation for the month of July, and everything looked copacetic. It was actually nice to see during July a continuation of some of the rebound in revenues for things like motor vehicles and tax payments. Where people have continued to pay and make purchases. And so some of the revenue shortfalls we thought we might see have either not materialized or are delayed. I do want to put a very strong word of caution in there and say that this time next year, we might be in a very different situation and likely will be. The RSU won't be able to maintain their low budget levels, especially with the added costs of this current situation. The town, we have additional costs, and this next budget year is going to be very challenging. And the revenues from tax payments and other sources will likely drop. So we haven't seen the worst of this yet, I don't think, but that initial hit, most of it's been absorbed, I guess I'll say. And we ended the year in a good position, I think, and that's continued through the month of July. So as far as anything extraordinary, I think that, what did I have here? There were some changes, about a 30% expense increase for the month of July, but that is a result of deferred expenses for education and service spending. So we did have those two, as Catherine pointed out, those two payments to the RSU. That's over $600,000. That's enough to completely throw off the monthly comparison for the budget. So there's some anomalies, but they're explained, and they are explained in some amount of detail in the comment section of my report. So with that, I will just say that we're looking good for the first month of the year, but it's always hard to tell with that first month, and the coronavirus has made it that much more challenging.
Good, and just because, again, I'm running the meeting, when you talk about the fiscal year, that runs, what, July 1st to July 1st?
To June 30.
Okay, to June 30. So the idea of, the first month of the year, you're not crazy. This isn't January. You're just speaking about the fiscal year beginning in that time.
That's a good point, Dennis. And again, you can see in this the report that the year-to-date and the monthly comparisons have identical numbers, and that is because the July is the first month of our fiscal year.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
There you go. Just like to point some things out because I never want to assume everyone knows where these things are.
Where does the money you got for COVID, the 28,000,
Yeah.
where do you put that?
So that's coming in as a reimbursement. So it's actually, we spend money for staff and equipment and then submit for reimbursement from the state of Maine, and they give us a check. So that comes back in, and what we try to do is accrue, if we can, and keep track of at least it's a lot easier with the physical items that we purchase. We keep track of those in a separate account. And then we can reimburse that account. Staff time, a lot of that actually is just going to be coming in as it'll go into the general fund and help offset, because a lot of the staffing we have is already in place. The beach, for example, we will be reimbursing that beach account for the additional staff time, because that would throw their budget incredibly out of whack to say, well, why is there an extra 60 hours every pay period that we're seeing, and we need to normalize that, and so that will be balanced out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just have one comment. It's not really a question, but I don't remember the exact amount, but I read it and it's on the main DOE website. But I believe the Maranacook School District got right around $1 million extra in the COVID money.
Oh, good.
So the idea is that everything that they're spending should be coming out of that and not being exceeded. And from what I understand, that's what most districts are trying to do.
Oh, good.
Is not overspend the money that they're getting. So we shouldn't be seeing a hit for that. But as you said, we had a computer expense deferral this year, as we were all aware from that joint meeting we went to. However, that's also being impacted by these COVID funds because the districts are buying devices for all students. And so that's money that you would have been spending in a future year or never spending because you don't want to ask for it.
Yeah.
Because it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we'll see how that affects things. It may not be as big a hit as we thought in terms of the computers, so.
That would be good.
Awesome. Thank you, Ken. All right.
One quick question.
Yep.
Page 9, apparently we voided a ton of checks on, proverbial ton of checks on August 3rd.
August 3rd, page 9.
Oh, it's the balancing report.
Yeah.
No.
Balancing report, page 9. Date 8/6, 1,058.75, 1895.91.
Oh, those aren't voided.
Those are
So
payroll.
those are payroll checks, so those show up as voided because they're direct deposit.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yep, no, that's a good
It's a clean eye.
observation.
Great point.
Because there is no physical check that the stub comes with a voided
Yes,
check.
exactly right. And that's a great point. Thank you, Ralph, for pointing out. Anytime that you have any questions about reading these documents or how to pay attention to things like that, you can get in touch and find out how we do that. Anything else, Eric?
That's it for me. I mean, unless you guys have any questions.
Excellent. We're going to move on to boards, committees, commissions, and departments. This is a portion of the agenda where we discuss or at least acknowledge the minute submissions of the following committees: the Age-Friendly Committee, the Library Board Committee, and the Cemetery Committee minutes that are listed. Any discussion or information? This isn't a motion situation. It's just acknowledgement into the public record.
Just appreciate the work of all those people who are meeting monthly and making this town a better place to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The last portion of communications in the agenda is for public communication. This is when public members may address the select board. There are no members here in the crowd, and I don't know if we have anyone on Zoom.
Just Bruce, and I can't bring him back anyway.
No worries. Therefore, we will move on.
Sounds familiar.
You've been there before, Ralph. We've all heard it. We move on to item 21014 in the agenda. It is the appointment of Mr. Ed Dodge to the Age-Friendly Committee. Ed's application can be found in your packet. And I just want to point out one hilarious portion, the portion that asks why he is qualified for this. And he wrote, "I am a senior." Love that. That's great. But Ed is not here. But I don't know if he
It's
has
a
to be-
reappointment. So
It's a
we're,
reappointment. Yeah.
We're
So
all set.
I would
Good.
make a motion to reappoint Ed Dodge to the Age-Friendly Committee for a term beginning tonight and ending on 6/30/2023.
Second?
there is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Just want to say Mr. Dodge has always been kind with the Masons above the post office in the Masonic Hall for our Heritage Days. Look forward to that. Great job, and thank you, Mr. Dodge. All in favor? Very well, let it be so. All right. Next up, we have some old business, and so we'll keep these to about 5-minute chunks. We're going to discuss the COVID-19 response in item 2102. Eric, do you want to take this?
Yes. Before I do, though, I did get a text from Bruce Burgoyne, who is listening in but unable to get audio through to us. So when we get to item 21-016, Bruce would like to have me read a comment that he will send to me. So,
Okay, very well.
We'll be
We will.
creative in how we make this happen.
We will do that. Thank you very much. And thank you, Bruce. Our local COVID response, Eric hit on a few things in his prior remarks, but catch us up to date if you can, sir.
Yes. I will. I'll pass this around for you all to sign.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I think we're just going to leave him here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, for later. That's right. We were just going to sign after the fact. That's right. Okay. So, yeah, we did revisit our response to the coronavirus after about probably a 6-week hiatus in which we were allowing really the summer to unfold, following the guidance provided by the governor, and seeing how things went. We found at the end of it that, as I've noted, we've had really good response from the public. We've had very few issues, and we did have to make a few small changes to how we operated, but for the most part, those changes were to become more open in how we provided services. The one point that I'll make is that with more opening and more access, we have oftentimes requested a little bit more caution from residents as far as when they wear masks and other face coverings. And I think that we're at a point now where we can continue to expand and open up the services we provide as long as people are careful. Because if we do have an issue, then that puts us back the other direction. And as I said, so far people have been very good about that. We've been able to do away with having staff working from home So now we have a fully staffed office that's able to help customers in person, provided they wear face coverings. And we've made a few other changes. I have some highlights here. I will just very quickly hit some of these. I will remind folks that we do have senior hours at the transfer station and the town office, Thursdays from 10 to 2. Those are ongoing. But we do request that only folks that are seniors or have a heightened risk from coronavirus utilize those hours. That's one area where we've had to kind of push back a little and say, if you're 25, you don't need to be here. And we've had to do that a few times because that person being there, yeah, it's convenient for them, but it puts other people at risk. So that's one area where we've had to be a little bit more deliberate, but I think it's been a small issue, and hopefully with a bit better communication, we can avoid it altogether. Again, staff are back to regular schedules. Face coverings are required in all public areas. That has continued to be the case. At the transfer station as well, if you can't maintain social distancing, you have to wear a face covering. And in my view, it's easy at the transfer station to maintain social distancing, but some people have an issue with that, and there have been some cases where people have gotten too close, and that puts staff in a tough spot. So I will again remind people and request that people wear masks if they can't social distance. Just like the town office, if one or the other can't be performed, we will ask you to please find an alternative way to get service, either hire a commercial hauler or do business in the parking lot. But we do need people to do one or the other, either distance or wear a mask. At the transfer station here at the office, we're inside. We don't really have a choice. You have to wear some kind of a face covering. So I just wanted to reiterate some of those points because that's one of the concerns we've had among staff and among other residents. So we want to try to address those. We are now allowing rentals of the second floor of Giles Hall with certain conditions. So if somebody does want to do a birthday party, we are allowing one per day and up to 25 people, which seems like a reasonable, safe level. Normally we would refund for anybody that puts a deposit down, but because of the added cost of cleaning and time involved, we are going to be keeping those deposits to help offset some of that cost, and I hope people understand that. The beach, same thing. We are allowing rentals at the beach, and same rules at the transfer station. We want people that are not in a family group to either stay 6 feet apart or wear a face covering, and that's been pretty well adhered to as well. I know it's hard in the water with children, but most people have done a good job of keeping them apart. And the last thing I'll comment on is that just like everybody else in the world, we are continuing to utilize electronic services and electronic communications, and that still is the safest and one of the most effective ways to communicate with the select board, with the town manager, with municipal staff. Just send us an email, call us. We try to be very good about responding. I have a 24-hour policy that I meet most all of the time, and I know many other appointed and elected officials have the same approach to that. So that's my pitch. Stay apart or wear a face covering and communicate electronically where you can.
Excellent. Good timing. Thank you very much. Any questions or any other things as we move on? Very well. Just a note to say that I have seen this in action at the transfer station and around, and I appreciate all of the hard work. We move on next to discuss old business 2114, fire station and library building project update. 5 minutes on this. Ralph, is this you?
It could be me, but Eric's probably going to do a better job.
Sounds good. Eric?
All right.
Can I interrupt for a quick second?
Please do.
This says that I need to plug in my computer, but I've had it plugged in. It says it's going to go dead. And then I'm not going to be in the meeting.
Uh-oh.
It looked like it was just a faulty connection, or it was not. Oh no. There
Yes,
it goes.
if you can, yeah, because it was lit up and then it stopped.
Okay.
Can you
When
move it
picked
around?
up your extension
I
cord.
just want to run the wire here really quick. That's plugged into this. And this should be
heavens.
plugged into the wall.
It's hilarious.
I'm feeling a little helpless. I'm sorry.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
It was plugged
Nope,
in.
now it's
so-
not again.
Yeah. It might be a faulty charger.
Okay, because I was having trouble at home too without it.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
it could be an issue with the charger.
All right, I know most of the meeting, I'll be good. I'll let you know.
But I don't see anything that is. So what were we on, Dennis?
Yes, thank you so much. I pause for technical difficulties. Fire station and library building project update. We have 5 minutes allotted for this.
All right, I'll try to be quicker than that. Really, I'd say that overall, the project is moving along very well. That payment, it was hidden, but the last payment for the library project was included in the S.J. Wood bill. So we still have a long ways to go on the fire station, but the library is complete, the work is complete, and we all couldn't be happier with that. The fire station, we are to the point where they're putting paint on things, which is a really good
Always
place,
a good sign.
really good place to be. However, we continue to struggle with a few key areas, and we discussed them a little bit last month. Essentially, we started this project in 2019 with the design phase and the planning phase and the financing phase. And then we moved on to the construction phase in 2020. And that split was good for us because it allowed us to have a nice process. However, it did cause a problem because there was a change in policy in the midst of those, in between those 2 years. So the state of Maine Fire Marshal's Office changed their code and adopted a much more involved and regulatory, I guess more burdensome in some ways, code, which because we were not in the construction phase, we are now obligated to meet the higher standards. And I look at it in two ways. One, I say, well, we're meeting higher standards and that's good. We have people that are, the building is safer because of it. However, it comes with a lot more cost that we had not planned on. And right now we are getting a little bit better view of what we think those costs are going to be. Originally, I thought that 25,000 would be a reasonable number, but we're actually looking at closer to 30 to 35,000. So that it just continues to have an impact. And those two items are for a sprinkler system and a special vent hood for the stove. Again, these are things that are required by code, and we have an obligation to meet them if we use the building the way we have intended, which includes sleeping quarters. There has been some discussion, and will continue, on whether or not we want to fully execute that portion of our plan. We don't have to right now, but it leaves us in a place where down the road, we're going to have to spend $20,000, $25,000 to put in a sprinkler system. So there's still a little bit of discussion that has to happen on how we organize and finish the project in those key areas. The vent hood is pretty much taken care of. We know we have to do that. That's something that we can't get away with not doing. But those sleeping quarters and the sprinkler system possibly could. So we just have to do some juggling and making a few judgments on those costs. That being said, we can absorb and can pay for all of that. It just makes it harder for us to do additional projects, like finishing touches, like maybe paving a certain portion of the side area that we had wanted to, and like doing extensive finish work at the library. So we're at a point now where we can't approve any spending until we have a better idea of what the cost of those projects are. So we have a couple of change orders, as Catherine noted. Those are among them, but there are a few others that we've asked for pricing on, including the second floor egress at the library, including a better material for the flooring at the fire station, and including that paving that I was talking about on the side, where we can't make a determination on what's going to happen there because we don't know the full cost. I fully expect that we'll have that information in the next week, perhaps two. But all that really means is that we're probably going to be out into October for project completion as opposed to September. And the project cost is going to be more than anticipated, but then again, we've known that for a while.
Talk to me about the contingencies and how that is a part of it, if you could, with your remaining time.
Yeah, we have about, we had $75,000 in additional contingency funds approved at town meeting. So far, we probably dipped into about 10,000 of that, I'd say. And if we take out another 35, that puts us with just $30,000 or so available for additional projects. And that's not a lot when we're dealing with the prices that we've seen, the current construction environment that we have, and some of the projects that we're looking at. However, I think that we can do a lot of it. I don't believe that we'll do everything. And maybe we won't be paving the side of the transfer station, or not the transfer station, the side of the fire station by the new bay this year. Maybe it'll just be gravel. And then next year we can spend the $10,000 to have that paved and regraded and have some material put in. So there are areas, nothing we need is not going to be accomplished at the fire station. And I do hope, and we're working on it, to make sure that the things we want at the library can be accomplished, including that second floor egress. So
Excellent.
that's Catherine won't let me forget it, and I know if I ever walk away from it, she'll hold me to the fire. But,
Well, she's right, because.
she's represented by a lot of she represents a lot of people who feel the same way.
Gotcha.
Because the functionality of that building is important, and that one, that retrofit, it's necessary almost as much as having that extra bay on the fire station was necessary to make it a really usable facility.
Yeah.
So,
Let's do it right the first time. I think the sort of MO of this board is with the dam project and all that stuff. Let's do it right the first time. If some of those cosmetic things, of
yeah.
course.
So, Ralph,
thank
how'd I do? And Dennis, how'd I do on time?
You did great. You're right there.
You got 99.9%. The only thing that you didn't mention is the cabinets are being installed. That should be about complete, and the countertops, hopefully this week.
Nice.
There's only one guy in the trim shop, and the guy's flat out. It's the
Uh-huh.
story of the state of Maine.
Yes, sir.
But that should be accomplished shortly.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and thank you, Eric. Last one under old business, item 2126. We have 10 minutes allotted for the discussion of the ongoing regional broadband project and considering additional funding thereof. Eric, I assume this is again your party.
I'll start by saying that agenda item is a holdover, and so at this point, we actually don't have any additional funding.
Okay.
It's really just the discussion of the ongoing mutual effort
Okay.
towards bringing broadband. And I got to say, every week for the past couple of weeks, I've had somebody in town call me and say, "I heard you're working on this. Thank you." Because even though we're a very well-served community, there are still plenty of pockets where service is inadequate or basically non-existent. And people are also kind of having struggles with the current service providers as well, so they're looking for some alternatives. So there's a lot of interest out there on this, and we have been meeting for over a year now anyway, as a group to work on this. We have a bunch of promotional material that's been put together. We have a website for the Western Kennebec Lakes Region. Oh, I can't remember the acronym.
Community Broadband Association.
Broadband Association. And I want to thank Catherine for stepping up to help out with some of that and get involved in a few different ways. And also Bruce for being, and Ralph for being pretty constant in that effort over the past month. So we're at a point now where our groups are getting ready to solicit proposals from service providers to provide a regional fiber, basically fiber to the home service. That's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take several months to complete, and it's kind of go time. We have to decide whether or not we're going to pursue this as individual communities or as a group. And so what we have in the packet is a resolution that essentially says, here's what we want. We want high-speed internet that's reliable. We want fiber to the home if it's possible. And we want to do it together. And that's the key piece, is that, to me anyway, in this resolution, is that if the board finds favor with it, it does state that we are looking to do this as a member of a partnership, and we're committed to that. So That's kind of my summary of where we are and what this particular item relates to. So,
This isn't what Bruce wanted you to read on?
no, he wants something on the next one.
The new business, yeah.
Yep.
So in this is just basically, if you will, really a proclamation of what we desire in our part of this community effort, yes? Okay.
This
And this is,
particular piece.
right, and this isn't a motion, this is simply just this is what you're doing?
Well, I mean, I
You have
hope
to
that,
make a
I
motion.
hope we can all sign it, which would be supported by a motion.
Okay, gotcha.
And then I'd like to add some additional pieces to that. I'll stay in the 10 minutes.
Yep, thank you.
Hopefully you all received, because you're part of the large email group, the latest communique from Joe Young from this group, the WK, whatever. And I worked with two other members, one from Mount Vernon and one from Vienna over the last 3 weeks. And we have come up with a document that you will all see if you attend on Thursday on the Zoom meeting. And you can request to see the working document that goes along with that, if you would like. That was in the email. What it's doing is basically working to restructure the group in terms of working. Bringing together a technical subcommittee that will have 6 members, 1 from each town, who will sit and do a lot of work over the next 3 or 4 months and evaluate the proposals that come in and guide the group to decide how they're going to form. Is it going to be 6 different proposals because each town is unique and is going to have something separate? Could it possibly be one thing that covers all 6 towns, or will it be some combination in between? Right now, it's been 50-ish people kind of listening in on meetings, and a smaller group of 12 or 15 that function as a steering committee, but they haven't really been doing much. They've organized, they've collected data, they've worked with a consultant, but there's a whole lot of information, detailed information about how this all gets put together that's needed, and it doesn't really need to come from a consultant, and that costs a lot of money. And they're just, so anyway, that's the proposal that's coming up for Thursday. It does not involve money at this point in time. What it is looking for is for some commitment. It's going to be hard for me to commit because I'm going back to work. However, having drawn up this working document, I know that 2 of us would be really good at it and I would be willing to help. Ralph, there's a whole part in there about organizational structure and bonding and finding out about those things. And you've got a wealth of knowledge in that area. You might be able to lend a lot of expertise without having to go find someone else who knows that. And it's really just putting together some documents that say, this is how this is done, or this is who you contact, because that hasn't been pulled together yet. Another big piece of this is community outreach, which I want to ask about the flyer in the tax bill. But
Yes,
Dennis,
yeah.
you're really good at that, and I don't know that there's anybody else on this committee who's under the age of 50. Yeah. And you just have a different perspective on how to reach people. And I think if you could lend some expertise on that or some input as to, here's 10 different ways you could contact people in town.
Oh, yeah.
And it might be as simple, which might not be that simple, as having a person in each neighborhood who's willing to go to 25 homes and hand something to people and say, do you support broadband? And you can't reach people via the internet if they don't have the internet to find out if they want the internet.
Right.
So it's just a really big problem for all of these towns, and the people working on this are all in the much older age group. So we don't have that kind of input. So the website went out, and I think we need to publish it on our site.
Yes, we do. We
Our
actually
town
need a
sites.
broadband page on our site, and that's something that I've been delaying on doing.
But if
So-
you could do that,
Yeah.
the money that we have spent from this select board to this group has formed a very nice website that is now live. It went up about a week ago. And we also paid for and received a very nice two-sided flyer that is a fold-up one. And the idea is to get it out to everybody. So if you pay to print it and then you pay to mail it, you're looking at approaching $1 per item. We haven't sent our tax bills out yet, but I'm guessing you folks, as the Board of Assessors tonight, might have approved our tax bills. And Eric found out it can be done as an insert in our tax bill for 19 cents. Does not increase the
Doesn't increase the postage?
does not increase the postage. Two-sided color, it's a really nice flyer. It would let everyone who owns a piece of property in town know that this organization exists, that there's a website, that you can get involved, that we're working on it. And to me, that is the best $420, I think it comes to.
Here, here.
And so I would like to ask that we do that because I think it would help a lot with the communication. The plan for this subcommittee, it's my last comment, is if they can get this work done that we've laid out over the next 3 to 4 months, we could possibly have some sort of article on the next town warrant to vote on bringing broadband to every home in Readfield. Then it still takes 12 to 24 months to have it happen. Because we have to commit as a town that this is what we're doing, and we don't know what we're doing yet. So that's the next 3 to 4 months. Then you put it on the warrant, you get the commitment, then the company will give you the specific proposal and sign the contract and say, okay, we can do it. It's going to take us 12 months. It's going to take 18 months to actually build the network and get it to you. So that's why we, the three of us who are working on it, have been pushing really hard for this to happen now over the next 3 or 4 months. We've got a lot of support, I think, in the general public statewide because of the pandemic. So it seems like the time is really good. If we can get this and nail it, we could be looking at 2 years, possibly, which is pretty fast. So.
How does the bond that we passed as a state helping us with this?
It's not yet. So if there's funding that we find that we need to get more proposals together, it could possibly be used for that. I don't know if it's really going to be used for actually implementing. They haven't told us exactly what it's going to be for yet.
Okay.
And there's always the hope that maybe the federal government will actually take action on this as a nation and make it more of a utility for the country, like electricity is. And if that happens and we're in the middle of the project, I would say yippee. So.
Yeah, and that's a possibility. I mean, we're actually a little bit ahead on this because of the work that's been done over the past year. So
Right.
That we're in a good position to make use of some of those funds if and when they become available.
And if they don't, then there are basically no companies who are going to offer to pay for it and be paid back with subscriber fees. They may be willing to pay for part of a network like that and have it be paid back through subscriber fees. So you'd be looking at funding some percentage up to the whole thing. And of course, this depends on when you want it. And this is why we have to get information from the people in our towns. Because if 75% of our town says, yeah, we can live with what we have, and, we don't want to spend millions of dollars to do this, well, then we have our marching orders. But if 75% of your town says, yes, let's do this, we'll subscribe, this is absolutely needed, looking at it as a monthly cost, it's not that great, that gives you a different direction to go in. So it's a really big issue. And if there are any people out there in the town that would like to help take this on, there may be some experts living amongst us who know a lot about fiber to the home, about broadband, who could maybe give a lot of answers to what the committee needs. So I'm done.
Yeah, just real quickly. The problem is going to be that the needs of the respective member communities are so diverse that to do it as a group to perhaps achieve some economies of scale is going to be very difficult because everyone's needs are different. And as Catherine has mentioned, I don't think you're going to find a vendor out there who is going to assume the total cost. So there is going to be some level of public expenditure that will be required to push us over the top, if you will.
And
So-
that's
but
what
so
you want
far,
on the warrant in November.
So good.
Pardon me?
That's what you want on the warrant in November, a commitment from the residents.
Well, I think it would be on the next warrant, like next June.
Any financial obligation
Yeah.
will be next June.
And maybe
But we're not
something,
there yet.
maybe something along the lines of what we did with the solar, do you authorize the town of Readfield to pursue fiber to the home not to exceed an amount of $3 million to be borne by the town? Or something to that effect. I don't know that we would have anything more specific in time to put in print in the town warrant. We may.
Probably not, yeah.
But
It's a
if
big
you,
order.
the feeling is if you have that much in hand, then you have companies who would say, okay, Readfield's ready. We'll give you a solid cost now, and we'll give you a solid timeline. But without knowing that your town is actually going to support it, to give you a detailed proposal is unlikely. So what we're looking at now are very rough, gross, wouldn't you say, Ralph, proposals?
And who the players are going to be, I think you're going to find that there are going to be subsets within the group that may have similar needs and can go this way, while others will go this way. And maybe we can get some economy that way, but to have us all marching in the same direction, I think is very unlikely. And I don't understand what happened with the wireless concept. It just kind of vanished. And that meeting that we attended at Red Zone a little while ago, it seemed to me that if you were going to do this and you wanted state of the art, to put you in a position to be up to date for the foreseeable future, you would certainly look at this. Number one, the infrastructure costs are significantly lower once your towers are in place and you don't have the issue of repair for storm-related damage and all the rest of it. It's pretty much standalone, and it has the bandwidth now so that it can penetrate areas that have lots of foliage, lots of trees and so forth. It is pretty effective, and I walked away with the understanding that it would get you very close to 100%. And there are towers in place now. And
I think it will be all a part of the considerations made by the group.
but I'm
It
looking
has
at
to
the
be.
resolution and they're only talking about copper or fiber to the home.
Yeah, I think the reason I understand, I'll just try to be quick about it, that was not looked at was because Red Zone wasn't interested in working with us. They did pursue that, and Red Zone said, yeah, no, it's not part of our expansion model right now. So they may change their tune if they see that we're actively pursuing fixed route people, but also that the coverage issue is more or less insurmountable with wireless. That if you are in a spot where there's a shadow, you're not going to get service unless you then connect to a transformer of some kind and then run. The main reason I have heard is that it's the coverage issue and their lack of interest.
Yeah.
But
And so
Well,
that's the
good.
point of this subcommittee, is to take these issues and have someone firmly get in touch with each of these vendors and find out, no, we're not interested, no, we're not interested, yes, we would be if A, B, C. And then at least we can get it moving, because everybody's felt that it's kind of stagnating.
And that's one reason for the resolution to kind of re-energize this, our group, our base. Is that gonna go out again?
No.
Okay.
Excellent.
So I would make a motion that we authorize the signature of the select board resolution concerning broadband as presented in our package.
Second?
All right. It has been moved and second to accept the proclamation of our fiber optic intentions. Is there any more discussion? We'll wrap this right up. Very well. All in favor of submitting Very well.
I'd also like
Thank
to
you.
make a motion to authorize the town manager to include in our tax bill the
yeah.
WKLCEA flyer.
Second?
Good. It has been moved and seconded to include a flyer of the committee in the tax bill. Is there any discussion about that? Thank you. I think that's a great idea, and we know everyone will get it. All in favor? Excellent. So be it. This is the portion of the agenda where we move into new business. We have 35 minutes allotted for this. Item 21015 says consider an agreement with KV Cog for a comprehensive plan update for 10 minutes. If I may, Eric, very quickly.
Yeah.
What this is, this portion of the agenda is simply saying that we are, as a town, considering joining KV Cog, which is a group of governments in the Kennebec Valley, and to engage in an update of our current comprehensive plan. And so all of that means is we're trying to update our comprehensive plan. KV Cog operates a service that helps us do that, and we are looking at discussing that this evening.
Yeah,
Eric?
that's great, Dennis. And we actually, I think we currently are members, but we will be, every year we've been renewing that. And being a member allows us to have services at reduced rates. And so this significant project is being provided to us, if approved by the board, by KV Cog at rates that you wouldn't get from another consultant. And so they not only have a great deal of expertise in this area because they perform this work for many towns similar to us and geographically close to us with very similar, land use and business considerations. They're also providing it, if approved, at a good value. And that's one of the values of our membership. So just a quick few points. The comprehensive plan is good for 12 years. This update will start in year start in year 12 and finish in year 13. So we'll have a few months where we might not have a fully vetted comprehensive plan. However, being in process puts us in a good place to defend any of that if necessary. But it's a document that does prescribe our community vision. That's the best way I can explain it. It's what do we want downtown Readfield to look like? What do we want rural Readfield to look like? What do we want to do about wildlife and environment and protecting the integrity of our neighborhoods and things like that. So it's that community vision, and it covers a wide range of things from transportation to social organizations and social fabric, but also things as mundane and necessary as land use and the vision for where we want to have hotels and motels, or if we want to have them at all, and where we want to have any number of activities. So this isn't the same as the land use ordinance. It's a different document. It is much more of a visionary document, but it supports and interacts very much with other policies and ordinances that we have, most notably being the land use ordinance. So there's a lot to it, but it's a guiding document. It's a vision document. One of the things that I think that this town, from in my 5 years here, has done very well at is vision. The select board setting goals and setting a direction. The select board listening to residents who say, we want to move on, we want to move forward. And so this is another way to do that. And it's a very inclusive process. It's facilitated by KV Cog, who's basically a neutral third party. So the public input phase is one of the most important and broad-reaching phases of this. So there's a tremendous amount of public involvement and public input that can happen. Of course, that'll have to be, we'll have to make some considerations for coronavirus as everything else. But this is a necessary tool for us. It's something that can help us ensure that we have access to grant funds, and also to make sure that when we have a vision in our community, that it's current and up to date. And if that's challenged, that we then have something to fall back on and say, yeah, it's 10 years old, it's 8 years old, it's 5 years old, but it's very important to have this document. And my recommendation is that we move forward with this. We do have, it's about a $20,000 price tag over 2 years. We've got funding available for the first year following the town meeting warrant that was approved by, I think that article was probably 70 or 80% approval. So it was quite well received, the
Right.
idea of putting money for planning.
Excellent.
And so that's where we are with this.
Excellent. I just want to point out for folks at home, in the packet that is available online, you can see the document that indicates the scope of work for Readfield's comprehensive plan, which will be facilitated by the Kennebec Valley Council of Governments. It includes things like demographics, historical and cultural, land use, housing, et cetera, et cetera. It is a full diagnostic of our town. And if you are interested in what that entails, I know there has been interest about the comprehensive plan here in Readfield. Please take a look at this document and you can see some of those services. Very well. Is there any more discussion?
The one thing I would ask is when you do get to a motion, if you could just authorize me to sign on behalf of the board.
Excellent.
David Trinnell has come to us multiple times over the last year or so, asking about vision in Readfield. And once we made a decision last spring to update the comprehensive plan, he thought that was a good idea and that would satisfy a lot of his desires to help express the vision of Readfield in the future. So people who may have been involved in that visioning exercise that he had been working with, I think would be excited about this. And we did budget for it, and this is the same price that we had been told it would be earlier. So they did not change it, which I'm glad of.
Membership has its privileges.
It does, and it is an up to amount. So if we spend less because we do more work in-house, then we don't get billed for it. So that's a nice feature of this agreement.
So I would make a motion to approve the contract with KV Cog for the Readfield Comprehensive Plan as presented in our packet and authorize Eric Dyer as town manager to sign.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to accept the comprehensive plan outline and to authorize Eric to sign on behalf of the select board. Is there any further discussion?
I would just add that perhaps the not to exceed number should be part of the motion, $21,500.
I'd be happy to add that into my motion.
Perfect.
The contract as presented in the packet, not to exceed $21,500.
It's been noted and changed in the motion.
Do you
Excellent.
agree with the second, Chris?
Good, excellent, very well. So we have a motion on the floor to approve this and not to exceed that amount. Very well. All in favor? Good, and it will pass. Thank you very much.
Is that the one that Bruce wanted to be
Nope, it's
involved in?
this one.
Oh,
Next
okay.
one. Yep.
21016, discuss participation in the KV Cog General Assembly. Again, KV Cog is the Kennebec Valley Council of Governments. The General Assembly is a body from that Council of Governments. And this, I believe, is Bruce time.
Yes, so Bruce's comments on 21-016 state, I volunteer to serve as the elected official because we do have to have one elected official and one other. You guys are all so happy about this.
Yeah, that's fine.
We like our distribution of
Yeah,
duties.
amen, yes.
So he's volunteering to be the elected official and recommends that the second representative be Eric Dyer, so he volunteered me as well. So, yeah,
Are you willing?
I certainly am, yeah.
Very
Well,
well.
I would make a motion that we appoint Bruce Burgoyne and Eric Dyer as our representatives for the municipality of Readfield to KV Cog.
General Assembly.
General Assembly.
Yes, indeed. It has been moved. Has it been seconded?
Second?
Good. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the appointments to the KV-COG General Assembly? Thank you,
Thank you.
Bruce.
Thank you, thank you.
Wherever you may be. And thank you, Eric, for that. All in favor? Thank you very much. Let's move on to 21017, 5 minutes allotted for discussed participation in the 2020 Maine Municipal Association's annual election.
I can
Oof.
make this short.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we accept the ballot as presented for the Maine Municipal Association and authorize Eric to sign for the town.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to submit the ballot as indicated in the packet and for Eric to sign on behalf of the select board. Is there any additional discussion on this?
I guess I should just note for the record, there's one person running for one office, and there are 3 people running for the 3 one-year terms. So there is no one else to vote for other than
It's
who's
not a
listed on the
contested
ballot.
election.
Right, yes, there is no contesting election, absolutely. So, very well, all in favor? Thank you very much. We move on to new business item 21018. Consider an agreement with Affinity LED Lighting for conversion of our local streetlights to LED units. 10 minutes for this, and I just want to again reiterate for folks who may be joining us or who maybe need a reminder, this agreement, any of these documents that are referenced in the agenda can be found in the packet. And so when you look at it, you can see the exact documents that we are looking to. So thank you very much. Eric, I assume this is your cup of tea?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about this. This is something that was approved at town meeting in June or July. I keep saying that. It's force of habit. In July, and this allows for the town to basically remove and replace all of our street light infrastructure, replace the halogen and vapor bulbs that are out there now with energy efficient LED lighting. And this is something that was made possible through legislative changes a few years back. And many municipalities in the state of Maine have taken advantage of this with very good results. Kennebec County, we've seen several communities convert Hollowell, Gardner, Chelsea, Farmingdale, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Belgrade is on this.
Augusta.
Augusta, yep. And all of those towns are working with this company. So this is an area where I believe that a sole source contract makes sense. Normally with a utility a proposal like this, I would be much more inclined to say, let's put it up to bid, let's find out who's out there. I'll just say up front that I am hoping the board would suspend their purchasing policy for this particular item and do a sole source for this conversion, because this company is really the only one that's done this work in Kennebec County. And I think there's a lot of value in that. And they've been working with us all along to move ahead. And so what we have is a proposal for a contract for $13,000 and let's see, $272 to remove and replace that existing infrastructure with LED bulbs. And what that will allow us to do is to not have to pay CMP for rental of that equipment. They won't own it, we will. That does put us on the hook for any type of maintenance, but as you know, LED bulbs are a proven technology that is low maintenance, and Affinity has good contacts in the area if the need arises for us to have these things repaired. So I think the maintenance risk and cost will be low. And what we've seen is many towns, and I think the same will hold true for Readfield, have a 3 to 5 year payback period. So this initial cost replaces the equipment, our electric bill goes down significantly, and our monthly payment to CMP for leasing their equipment goes down. So those two things together over time accrue and save, save money every year. In 3 to 5 years, we will have paid for that initial investment, and after that, we will be making money and saving money, keeping it in our pocket and not having to expend it for electricity and lease payments. So I think it's a wise decision financially, operationally, and also environmentally. I don't want to leave that out. This does cut down on energy consumption, which is important.
Absolutely.
So I'm happy to take any questions on this, but it's a pretty self-explanatory process. The one piece that would need to happen in addition to this is that we would need to make sure that CMP had notice that we were doing this conversion, and then they would then cease the billing for those pieces of equipment, which I hear from some towns that they're dragging their feet on because they don't like this. They're losing money on it. So some towns have had to wait quite a few months to have this actually happen.
We got time.
But I guess in the end, the sooner we do this, the better off we'll be. The sooner we'll start accruing savings.
Go ahead, Ralph.
It's a very comprehensive document. And I'm impressed with the lengths that the company has gone to protect the interests of the client towns. There's a lot of hold harmless language in there, and that's very impressive. The only issue that I have is with item 1, which basically says that the 13,272 may not be the final price. The final pricing will depend on actual number of fixture size and types installed based on GIS audit review. So what kind of exposure does that present us when this actually happens? And if we approve this agreement at this cost, are they then entitled to dun us an extra amount if the review comes in at a higher total?
Yeah, so first, risk I think is very low. We have less than 50 streetlights in town. We know where they all are. I don't have the exact count here, but we've confirmed with CMP what we have. We've confirmed it on the ground. The one piece that could change with this is that article at town meeting did allow for up to I think 3 or 5, I can't remember which, additional lamps. Right now, the only place that I know of, and the only one that I would recommend at this point that we put an additional street light, maybe perhaps even as part of this project, and I think it should be, is at the Fairgrounds intersection, where the Fairgrounds Road intersects with Route 17 Main Street. We just don't have, we've got lights on either side of it, but there's nothing at that intersection where we have a crosswalk and we have a fair amount of traffic. So that's my one recommendation for an additional item that would change the cost of this. So as far as that variability, I think the risk is very low. As far as their ability to charge extra, I think that we would have to, by my understanding, it would have to be mutually agreed upon. We'd have to agree to pay whatever they were saying they think we should for those additional installations. This doesn't obligate us to pay that additional amount if there's an excessive, if it exceeds the amount that's actually there. We could say, well, we said 35, we're only going to pay this amount and that's it. And if we want more, we can decide to do that later.
It seems kind of like a blanket statement just to make sure that if something weird happens.
Yeah, no, so my reading of that, Ralph, is that, we would have to pay if we want more, but we're not obligated to pay more unless we agree to. Because it's a fixed price for a fixed number of lights.
For 37.
Yep. So.
And we had extra in the warrant that was passed.
Yes, we had, I think, put in an extra, because we do have additional, there's other costs to this as well, with CMP. So I think we had put in 20,000, 21,000, because we do have our ongoing utility costs in that line item. So this is coming out of the same line item that we have our streetlights otherwise accounted for. And I did, we didn't plan, when we did our budgeting for this area, we didn't say, well, we're going to convert to streetlights and we're going to save a whole bunch of money right off. We didn't plan on that. We know that it's going to take time, so I don't think we even added any discount in to our monthly utility rates because I didn't want to count our chickens before they hatch, so to speak. So if we're able to get this done before, sometime before July next year, we will be accruing savings that we wouldn't have budgeted for. So I think that financially we're in a good spot, and we did have a couple thousand extra in that line to account for some of those additional streetlights and anything that might be out of the ordinary. So again, just to round out that discussion, I think that we're in a good spot financially, and I don't see that one issue as being something that should hold up the process because we do have control as to whether or not we want to spend that extra money.
Excellent.
I have a question about the date that you just mentioned, because I believe in here, I read the start date was by July 30th, but we're signing after that, so obviously we're starting later, but
Yeah.
the contract end date is December 30th of this year.
Yeah, so that's when they will have the installation completed by.
That doesn't mean that's when CMP will renegotiate or
Doesn't
drop
mean
the
that's
lease.
when CMP's gonna stop charging us, or, yeah, basically.
And then my other question was really following up on Ralph's about the number of poles, because I know there's been discussion by various groups about additional lights in town. And if we're doing this work and a company's here on the ground and there are up to, I think you said 5 lights, this would be the time to do them. So what is the process for that? Have they already been marked and discussed, or?
Basically, we've been, that one at the fairgrounds residents came forward and asked for. I think there's value in having some flexibility around that. And I would say that perhaps the next select board meeting, if you want to propose anything additional, that might be a good time to do it. This isn't going to have to, it doesn't have to happen all tonight.
Okay.
That being said, I know there's a lot of concern about dark skies and the fact that we have a lot of lights already, and what do we really need more and where do we need more? And just because we have that capacity doesn't mean that we should be utilizing it. There's a lot of that kind of, in my view, and I've definitely heard from my neighbor John Knox many times about how important it is to have dark skies, and I appreciate that.
Well, with LED lights, it will be considerably different.
It will, and that's one thing that's really important about these lights is that they're not a broadcast light. They will put a rectangle down on the road, on the area that's intended to be lit, and it will be a clean, fairly crisp line. It won't be a flood. It'll be a downlight. It'll be not full cutoff, but it will be a cutoff light.
Right.
So it will be very targeted. So it'll be a great improvement over what we have. But still, I want to be
In
sensitive.
terms of leaking or what we would
Yeah.
call the throw.
Well, and they're
Party
down
property
lights, they're
owners
not,
ought to be very
And they don't
happy.
go out.
Yeah.
right.
We don't do what?
Well, I know there are some very dangerous intersections where we've had accidents, and I think it would behoove us to try and ask maybe Lee, because they respond to these events, or the Kennebec County Sheriff.
Yeah.
Where they
Or
are the ones who.
DOT, somebody's got to have some data. that-
DOT has all the
I
crash
mean, there's just a
data, yeah.
horrible one up at 135 and 17 in the last couple of weeks where someone or 2 people ended off into the trees there, coming down over from the Plains Road and people turning left onto 135. That's not lit and it's very
Ouch.
dangerous. It may be lit, I'm not sure, but
Yeah, so
I know there have been different discussions over time on different intersections. I think it would just behoove us to get some information. And find out what the cost is.
Yeah,
And what the cost is if we do it next year when they're not here. Maybe it's the same.
And as Eric said, that can go on next agenda.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's September
That's great, but we're still,
something.
yes, that's right. Now, we still need to, do we need to approve this agreement?
Yes.
Or take a motion on this? Okay.
So I'll make a motion that we accept the contract with Affinity
Mm-hmm.
LED lighting as presented in the contract for an amount right now of, you've got it there. Ralph.
13,272.
$13,272 and authorize,
Eric.
that's another single line.
authorize the town manager to sign.
It has been moved to accept the Affinity LED light and seconded, and authorize Eric to sign on behalf of the Select Board. Is there any further discussion on the contract with Affinity LED lighting? Very well. All in favor? Good, good.
No, the one, Bruce just commented that we do want to make sure that we vote to.
Now we have to suspend the, yes.
for
Good,
this
good, good.
item.
I'll
Yep.
make a motion that we suspend the is that it, the purchasing policy?
Purchasing policy, and actually,
Purchasing
you know,
policy
go ahead, yeah.
For consideration of the Affinity LED Lighting Company contract.
It has been moved that we suspend our purchasing policy in order to enter into this agreement for Affinity LED lighting.
Second.
It's been seconded. Is there discussion? I just want to make sure that I want to point out something. We are doing this because they are the only vendor. They have experience. I hear suspend the purchasing policy, and I think maybe sometimes I bristle or I hear something weird. But in this case, it's the absolute right thing to do.
I mean, I certainly feel that way, and I want to clarify, they're not the only vendor. There are other
Okay.
people in New England that do this. They're the only vendor active in Kennebec County that successfully, and have installed all of the installations in Kennebec County.
Okay.
So, as far as the saturation goes and the reliability and the you know, kind of proven nature of what they're doing, you couldn't ask for more.
Okay,
in my
that's
view.
very well. I feel confident with that. I just want to point that out.
Yep.
I think when we had looked at this a couple of years ago, or in the last couple of years, there were only two companies that expressed any interest
Yeah.
in any of these proposals in Maine, and the other company had nothing in the same price point as Affinity, which is why that's the vendor being chosen by everyone.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. It's been moved. It's been seconded. There's no more discussion. Shall we vote to suspend the purchasing policy? All in favor? Very well. So we have done that even retroactively, and everything is in line for that. And we move on to our last agenda item under new business for the evening, 21019. Consider a tobacco-free policy for all town of Readfield buildings and properties. I just have a question about this,
Yeah.
and I understand it. I do. That is all encompassing of, if I'm a cigarette smoker and I get hired by the town of Readfield, will I be able to smoke a cigarette anywhere?
No, you won't.
Okay.
And currently, you can't anyway.
Okay.
At least not under our current personnel policy, but this really does expand to all buildings already, again, under state law that are public. This is just an expansion to say that our outdoor recreational spaces, areas, the beach is already prohibited smoking.
Yeah.
Areas like the fairgrounds, areas like our town forest, that those areas are now considered to be smoke-free. So in the past, we had a piecemeal approach to this. Some things were addressed in individual policies, like the beach policy, for example. Some things were addressed under our personnel policy about not smoking in vehicles. And some things were addressed, like the transfer station has separate policy for saying no smoking. So all those policies were disparate and not connected. This is just a comprehensive and universal prohibition that says this is not something we want to have happen on public property.
Good. And just to give folks another idea, in the packet, it lists the town office, the library, fire station, transfer station, beach, fairgrounds, Torrey Pond Nature Preserve, the town forest, any Readfield sanctioned event, and in all town of Readfield owned, leased, or rented vehicles.
It does not mention trails. Is that because trails are not all on town-owned property?
That's exactly right. And so
So if the trail is on town-owned property, you may not be smoking on the trail.
yes.
But if it's on where we have an agreement with a property owner that the trail passes over, we are not putting this policy on that piece of the property.
That's my understanding of how it's being presented. I think that there's probably a little bit of ambiguity around that. My expectation is that I wouldn't want to unduly restrict someone's rights on their private property.
Right.
And so I don't really have a lot of interest in doing that. And I think that there are very few areas where that's actually the case.
And those property owners could certainly put up no smoking signs on this section of the trail or ask us to do that for property owner request.
Absolutely. I think this is a good policy. I think it's sort of, I like the fact that it's not creating anything new. It's just bringing a bunch of little pieces together. So thank you very much.
So Bruce did have a question he asked, so this is a first reading. And I'm just saying that it was intended to be just a single reading because it's really just an expansion of what we currently have. But I don't know if Bruce has any additional comments. I guess it's up to you how you want to approach this. Whether you'd like to do this as a first reading or whether you'd like to, Bruce says okay by me.
It's a policy, and policies don't need 2 readings, do they? I thought it was, or is that why we do have it?
We have policies that we read it twice, but we make changes
Okay,
and
great.
then we read the next one. This one is all already done.
And it does include everything.
Yeah.
It involves chewing, vaping, everything. It's
Yeah.
all products.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying there's some things in here I've never heard of before.
Yeah.
But we're doing this
Snooze.
in partnership with the healthy communities of the capital area.
Yeah.
And at least.
And they can get us signage on that then they can use down at the
Yeah.
beach and things like that.
And
So
that
that's
will be part of that, that will be an outcome of this.
With all due deference to our lost friend, I'd like to go ahead and consider this our reading. I mean, can we?
Sure, yeah,
do
and Bruce
that?
said he was okay with
Yeah,
that.
I mean, is everyone on the same page? I just feel like it's kind of a no-brainer, brings everything together. I don't see any issues I never saw before.
It's just expanding what already was there and brings together. I'm happy.
All right, I would entertain a motion, I
I'll make a
suppose.
motion to accept the Town of Readfield tobacco-free policy as presented in our packet with a 1 reading exemption for the policy.
It has been moved to accept the tobacco-free policy as presented in the packet.
Second.
It has been seconded also. And is there any further discussion on this? Good. All in favor? Thank you very much, Eric. This is a great thing. And the Healthy Communities Partnership and all those folks do great work, so I'm glad we would be there.
Yeah, it was, they helped provide draft language and it was.
Oh, they're
really good,
fantastic.
so-
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Before you adjourn us, our meeting is September 14th.
September 14th.
September 14th.
Is our next meeting.
September 14th is
But
our
we're
next
meeting
meeting.
before that on the Tuesday, the 8th at 4,
September the 8th.
We
Yep.
have our
retreat,
retreat. Yeah.
Mhm.
which is a public meeting.
That is correct.
And it's going to be 4 to 8.
Yes.
Before you get too far along in the adjourning process.
We're not. We
One thing
haven't-
that we, I guess I forgot to mention during the first part of the meeting was the tax commitment. So I think it might be appropriate for a member of the,
Oh, sure,
a
absolutely.
member of the Board of Assessors to explain that, and I can fill in any gaps if you want.
Absolutely.
Because I think it's an important discussion. yeah.
Sure. We're going to end tonight to talk about this. This wasn't an item on the agenda, but this was just a discussion of the results of the meeting of the Board of Assessors, which happened before this meeting took place. The Board of Assessors committed the tax, or basically approved and submitted the tax commitment for this year, and our mill rate as well. Eric, anything you want to add or contribute to that discussion?
Sure. So the mill rate was set significantly lower than we had originally anticipated.
Say that one more time.
The mill rate was set significantly lower than we originally anticipated.
Thank you, sir.
With a caveat, the Because of the fact that we are always trying to keep pace with state valuation estimates, and because state valuation estimates are, and in turn discounts in the homestead exemption for residents who claim their primary residence being the town of Readfield, we need to keep pace with that. And this year we were not going to be able to keep pace. And so we had to somehow make an adjustment to account for the fact that the state said that, for example, we had a property value of 300 million, and we said we had a property value of 250 million. Just as an example. We've been slowly losing ground, and we were at just over 90% of what the state said we should be last year. This year, we're going to be under that. And so that would mean that we would lose money, and our residents would be losing a portion of that refund that they would get.
And this is based on the assessments of the properties, the valuation of the properties.
That's right. So in order to do that, we could do a number of, to correct that, we could do a number of things, one of which was a revaluation, which we were considering before the coronavirus. The fact that everything's in turmoil right now, and we're seeing crazy sales and a real demand peak that probably isn't going to be sustained for more than a little while anyway. We thought it best to not pursue that revaluation for a few years. In the meantime, however, we do need to adjust and make sure that we have valuations that reflect also what we're saying we should have. We've seen a lot of sales over the past few years, but particularly recently, that are vastly exceeding the assessed value the town has on the properties. So what the assessor recommended and what the Board of Assessors committed to was a 10% increase in the valuation of residential real estate, and that includes the land and the buildings. However, when the values go up, the mill rate can go down. So it's kind of a glass half full, glass half empty. The mill rate is down by about 2 points, down to 17.57.
Yeah, 17.5.
From 19.55. But the value of people's homes is up, which is good if you're trying to sell, which a lot of people are, but again, a lot of people are also moving to town. But the net impact of that is really nothing, because the mill rate goes down by about almost exactly the same percentage that the value went up. So if there were no other changes made after compared to last year, then we wouldn't see a change in anybody's tax bill. So what was done really didn't do anything except for correct for that overall position that we had to reach,
Right.
And that we would have reached through a reval in some way anyway.
Right.
That being said,
Yeah.
There were some changes that happened that actually reduced people's tax bills. One of which was an increase in the homestead exemption number to $25,000 from $20,000. So that amount of money that people don't pay taxes on is increased by $5,000, which is great. And the RSU came in with a lower than expected budget, which has been tremendous, and also resulted in a reduction in the mill rate. So a lot of things happened at that meeting before this one, but in essence, people's tax bills are going to go down. What they pay out of pocket to the town of Readfield is going down.
Right.
And that's a good thing. I did the math on it before the meeting, and it's going to be about 3% for someone that owns a home that last year was valued at $200,000, and this year is valued at $220,000.
Right. And again, just the idea that the mill rate went down, the valuation goes up, so the scale stays the same. And I just want to,
Absolutely right.
as
The
if
mill
I
rate
may,
is going to raise approximately the same amount of money that we had budgeted for.
exactly right. And
Had
so
we not had that valuation increase, they wouldn't have got the full,
25,000 for the
$25,000.
homestead exemption. So sometimes in order to give the residents of Readfield the maximum amount of exemption money, this is the way it shook out.
Absolutely. It's a great way to put it, Dennis.
Excellent.
And does this mean that we will now be pushing the reval out a number of years?
We should be
Yes.
good for about 2 years with this 10% adjustment. Whether or not the town decides, once the coronavirus issue is behind us, that they want to pull the trigger, I think that's a factor of what's the price for the exercise and how stable we deem the market to be, because you certainly don't want to be doing it at a time like this, when values are just sky high and moving all over the place. So you're gonna pay for an exercise that isn't gonna give you legitimate numbers for the long haul.
Because the big issue is always the parity question and making sure that we have fair value. I mean, it's
Right.
and that's hard to do when you have everything.
You can only throw out so many
Going up.
high-end sales as part of your process and so many low ends. And then you're stuck with what's left. And if it's skewed, your whole process is questionable right out of the gate.
So yes,
And you also mentioned that this is on residential property. What about commercial properties?
completely different
commercial wasn't an
situation.
issue.
Completely different situation. Commercial property in no way is selling or moving in the manner with which residential property is. And so it wasn't even
We didn't touch
factored.
it.
Yeah.
So the value stayed the same,
Yes.
the mill rate stays the same?
No, they get a bit
They're
of a
getting a
break on
break.
that. Yeah, they get a break on it.
Okay. So the
and that's,
value did not go up, but the mill rate still went down? Okay.
But there isn't a significant amount of commercial property in the town to begin with. So
Right.
the mill rate reduction doesn't have a significant.
If anything, it's one
impact.
little way to be business friendly.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Well, I just thought it was important for that population to
Yeah.
have access to that information.
Yeah, yeah, but really fundamentally, it was a question about, as Ralph said, about
Excellent.
the market's not the same as real estate.
Right.
All right, friends. I just want to do this as a way of saying goodnight. Thank you very much. And we also thank you, Bruce, and thank you all for helping me get through my first meeting.
You did
If
a
you are,
great job.
thank you very
Good
much.
job.
Thank you.
I'm just
If
checking
you
to
are,
see if there's any more Bruce conduit coming.
well, yes, yeah, exactly.
No, he's had enough.
If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe to the Town of Readfield page. You will get updates and channel when we have new items come along. So please do that, subscribe, and thank you very much. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Yeah, there's a motion.
Second?
Seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Let's stay longer.
And vote Ralph. There we go. And there it is.